Welcome back, everyone, to the Epic Scales podcast, episode 73, presented by DJD Graphics. I'm Jacob Dove of Phenom Motorsports, along with Shaun Blight of Canadian Racing Tours. And we've taken a pretty decent break here, but we've been really busy. You know, Shaun's been almost at a racetrack almost every single day, it seems like. He's been, all over Ohio at Attica and Fremont and Eldora. But we wanted to come on here and talk about Eldora Kings Royal that happened this past weekend and recap that. Shaun, talk about that experience.
Yeah, so we don't have any guests lined up for this episode, but we've got some coming up. We'll talk about that later on. Just right now, we're into July and August. It's big money season for a lot of racing series, late model sprint cars, modified. So during the week, a lot of guys are pretty busy this time of year. So we still wanted to talk about what's going on in the sprint car world specifically. Last week, I left Monday morning for Fremont, and I was at races in Ohio for 6 straight days. I was actually at races for 10 straight days going back to the week before. So I have taken a few days to get caught up on sleep and editing and all that kind of stuff. But had an absolute blast. I'd never been to Fremont. That was one of the highlights of my week, and it was the first night when Cole Macedo got his first ever touring 410 sprint car win, and then flipped at the end of the front stretch, tangling with a slower car. They had to tow the car into victory lane. Anyone who was at that race is not going to forget that. So that's the one thing. I talked to Cole Macedo, and he was kind of kicking his ass, like talking about how dumb he probably looked to everybody. And I was like, hey man, you got the win. Like if you crashed and you had it locked up and you were coming off a turn 4 or something and you lost, that's one thing, but everyone's going to remember that win who was there. So that was really cool. Just a lot of chaos, a lot of news, obviously, throughout the week. Like it seemed like every morning you're waking up to something, and then everybody's talking about what's been going on during the previous night or that morning's news. Anthony Macri getting the win at Kings Royal. I do want to say, and there's people that will back me up, I was camping with a group of about 10 or 12 people, and we're all going around Saturday morning and kind of predicting who was going to win. I had the first pick. I could have picked anybody, and I had a feeling about Anthony Macri, and I said Anthony Macri is going to win the Kings Royal. I was getting some eye rolls from everybody in the group. I don't know what it is, but the guy loves big half miles. He was under the radar fast all week. So I took Macri, and that's my guy right here. Congratulations to him. Kind of been going through a lot the last couple of years, mentally, personally. So I was super, super happy to see him get that win.
Yeah, obviously, Macri is one of the hottest sprint car drivers in the country right now, picking up the win this week at BAPS, going into Williams Grove this weekend. But I want to go back a little bit. Saw that terrible crash starting out with Caleb Henry. Obviously, you never want to see that happen, and he had to go to the hospital and get checked out. Obviously, we want him to recover, and all the drivers that have taken a pretty bad shot here at Eldora this past weekend with Tyler Courtney, Aaron Reitzel, Brad Sweet. They all had some pretty scary wrecks, and I've been watching Eldora for I don't know how many years now, and I've never seen that scary of sprint car wrecks. I mean, sprint cars are pretty insane. They look like they want to crash you every time you're going around in the corners, but yeah, it was absolutely insane to see on Flow Racing. I can't even imagine being there. And Shaun, I know you were obviously had credentials and you could take pictures. So kind of walk us through some of the scenes that you saw in person with some of those scary crashes.
Well, and some of the stuff that people didn't see too, like Connor Morrell sprained his wrist. He had a cast on his arm, like one of those plastic casts. There were a lot of guys limping. Like even guys that walked away from crashes, like Justin Peck and Danny Sams, our buddy, had a nasty one. They were both fine, but there was a couple other guys just noticeably limping around. Like even guys that walked away from their wrecks. Man, it was tough. Like, and I was talking to a couple of people, drivers, crew members, and the competition with sprint cars is so steep. And I don't mean to knock on late models with what I'm about to say, but including the duels, I saw 7 A mains last week, and I saw 7 different winners. There were 0 repeat winners all week last week. And especially at a track like Eldora where aero is so important. Guys are just trying to go for it going into the first turn. And that's where all the chaos seemed to be happening, was like early on in a race where guys are trying to make their moves. Maybe they had a bad qualifying effort and they're just throwing it in. And because if you don't, once you get single file, that's where you're going to finish. So I don't know what they can kind of do to rectify that. The catch fence, I mean, Justin Peck's wreck, like I'm surprised he walked away from that one because he hit the post there in turn one and the car just came to a dead stop and dropped. And for me, that was more the scariest one of the week. Courtney's was really bad too, obviously, but Justin Peck's was the one where I was like, how did he walk away from that? Because he went literally 140 miles an hour to zero. And man, the cars are just, the track was heavy because of morning rain. So guys are just flying. The track was super fast, and you get guys that are desperate and they're just throwing it in there. So it was a chaotic week. A lot of torn up race cars, blown engines. I'm glad I'm not an owner of a sprint car because I was talking to a couple of them and they're like, this was an expensive week for a lot of teams. You saw guys like Baylog and Sams, and there's a few other guys that didn't even come out for the King's Royal because their stuff was either torn up or their engines were gone or whatever. So yeah, tough week on drivers and equipment for sure.
Yeah, and for a lot of people who, just go online and, like to talk down before knowing any of the facts, people are saying that, oh, the drivers are driving over their head. And some of them are, but people don't realize that there's a big hole that gets going in turn one that they can't really control. They're trying to get Tony Stewart to, fix it before many cars get more torn up. But, I know the Eldora track prep crew is one of the best in the country, and they were trying to, make it as safe as possible. But some things they just can't control, and that's what caused so many of those guys going into turn one and catching the guardrail and just flipping down the turn. So, yeah, definitely not cool to see. And we want to, give our best wishes to guys like Tyler Courtney that are still recovering from his surgery. I know I was talking to Aaron Reitzel the other day. He went to the specialist to check out his foot, and he's making a full recovery. Brad Sweet's going to be back here soon. He's experienced a concussion. So, yeah, definitely not ideal, but especially all high-limit drivers, the top three in the points. So that really opens up, the competition between Brad Sweet and now Rico Abo moving forward. And one of the drivers that stuck a big, silly season early on was Gio Scelzi quitting his ride after his big flip in the KCP 18 car. Nobody's seen that coming, especially with, that gel of that group. I know it seemed like Gio was pretty, it seemed like he was pretty well off with that ride since 2020, I believe. And nobody expected him to just get up and, drop his ride and kind of just leave the King's Royal before he even started. Shaun, what was some of the talk in the pit area? I'm sure a lot of people were talking about it after Gio, left the KCP 18 car.
That was pretty wild. Like I woke up fairly early. I think that was Friday morning that news broke, if I remember correctly, and saw Gio in the pits after the race the night before, and like the car was just in a million pieces, and they're just tossing stuff into a pile. For the vultures of the fans to come and collect and pick up whatever they wanted. And then early in the morning, just a Facebook post by KCP Racing and saying that Gio has quit the ride. I was sending messages out to a couple of the drivers that I know. I'm like, did you guys do you hear about this? And I was breaking the news to them. They hadn't even heard of it. So guys were talking about it for sure. And for that to be going into the night was going to be a World of Outlaw points night. And there are 6th or 7th in owner points, I believe, and driver points. And the car just sat there and didn't race, which was pretty surprising. I thought they'd maybe plug somebody in the car just to get maybe the owner's points for the night. But that was pretty shocking. I just wanted to go back to, you mentioned the hole in turn one real quick. Because I was lucky enough to hang around Tony Stewart a little bit, and some of the photographers were asking about that hole in turn one. And it definitely is something that's bothering him. He hates it. I just want to put it out there. Like, this isn't something that he likes about the track. It's been driving him crazy for years, and he wants to fix it. The problem is, from my understanding, just to just to see like there's a drainage pipe or something underneath that in turn one. And just for them to try to fix it would cost $1 million. But the problem is they don't know how far or long that pipe is. Like that thing could go for miles. And then you're looking at like a 10, 20, $30 million project all of a sudden. So that's the problem they're up against, is like they just don't know exactly where that leads. That's my understanding. I could be totally wrong. But that's kind of what I was led to believe over the weekend. So, I mean, you see with the late models, like they hit that and it kind of helps them turn a little bit. Like we saw that at All Tech when you get the holes in the corners, it kind of helps the cars and guys are hitting it on purpose. But sprint cars, man, like Danny Sams, like he hit it and it's like you get airborne and you're just along for the ride. And the same thing happened with Reitzel there too. So I don't know what they're gonna do for that, but I just know that they do want to fix it. Like it's something that's on their radar. And I mean, other than that, you know, like the speeds and everything at Eldora, like it's such a fun place to watch the sprint cars at, because they are just absolute monsters around that place.
Yeah, the $1 million hole, ending people's seasons and rides, and injuring them. So definitely going to be a topic of conversation moving forward. And now creating a domino effect with the whole silly season. Obviously, with the news breaking that Gio Scelzi ends up filling in for Tyler Courtney the rest of this year on the High Limit Tour. It's going to be interesting to see because obviously Gio was a World of Outlaws driver for the past couple of years, and him switching to High Limit should be interesting, especially with the High Limit competition, if he can try to continue scoring points for the Clausen Marshall team. But it seems like it's going to be a battle between Brad Sweet and Rico Abreu for this year's championship, and hopefully Reitzel can still gain some momentum, because obviously breaking your foot's not ideal, especially when you're driving a 900 horsepower sprint car. But yeah, it's definitely intriguing that also Emerson Axsom is going to be filling in for the rest of the year in the KCP 18 car after Gio gave up that ride. Emerson's a great, fill-in driver. He's a young gasser coming up through the USAC ranks, made a big swing in the wing sprint cars this year, and definitely a talented young man that's going to make a lot of noise, I feel like, in the wing stuff. But definitely going to be a lot of learning for him. I know people were already crapping on him on social media about, he was getting lapped last race. It was his only first race in the car. So definitely going to have to give him some time to gel with a whole new team, whole new setup. You got to get used to your guys and give feedback. And I'm sure he's going to be pretty solid with Outlaws. But what do you think with that whole domino effect, Shaun?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how he does. We've seen the last few weeks, like Dason Pursley is getting it. He was quick time the other night. It takes some of these guys some time, and I'm a big Emerson Axsom guy. I love watching him race, and I think in this 18 car, you give him a little bit, like you said, to gel with the team, and I think he's going to surprise some people. There's a lot of talent there, and I really hope he does well. We did our preseason episode where we're making our bold predictions, and I remember I picked Gio to win the Knoxville Nationals. I don't know if it's going to benefit me or not that he's in the NOS 7 car now. He doesn't have a lot of time to get that car the way he wants it, but I'm going to stick with that. I think Gio is, this is not that the KCP car wasn't good, because he had a great year last year and kind of took a step back, but this is a great opportunity for him to show what he's got and maybe parlay that into a different ride for next year. But Gio's not going anywhere, man. Like, I'm a big Gio fan. He can drive up there with the best of them. So I'm really curious to see how this goes. It's unfortunate. Like, we both like Tyler Courtney and the things he can do in a race car. Not many other guys can. So, 2 broken backs in 2 years at Eldora, like it sucks, because he's one of the best there is. And you ever hang around the guy in the pits, he's a great guy to talk to. He's super friendly with the fans. And, Aaron Reitzel, maybe not as he's kind of been more of the villain role, but what an amazing year he's been having. And he's so good for the sport. Like, he embraces that villain role. And I immediately respect a guy who can talk smack and then back it up like he did in Pennsylvania. Like, I don't care if you like him or not. Like, I respect that like a million times. So Yeah, we want all these guys to rest up and get better. It sucks for sprint car racing that anybody gets hurt ever, especially big names, at the top of the standings.
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of at a turning point, in the sprint car season where, it's been record heat out. It's really hot every single day around the country. It doesn't matter where you are, that these guys are racing, almost every weekend and, throughout the week, that these drivers and teams are, they're pushing their boiling point at this point because they're spending a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort to try to win and get on podiums and be competitive. And there's a lot of crashes, a lot of mistakes, a lot of things going on, and we've seen a lot of drama play out these past couple of weeks in all dirt racing, but especially in sprint cars between Kyle Larson and David Gravel there at Eldora. Larson was racing gravel really hard there and out edged him one of the prelim nights, and they had a big ordeal, and gravel turned Larson after the checkered flag, and they got called back to the by the World of Outlaws director in the trailer, and big ordeal with all the people booing in the crowd, and definitely a lot to talk about. And there's this big rivalry between the World of Outlaws with David Gravel and High Limit with Kyle Larson, and these guys are just kind of chirping back each other. So again, it's good for the sport. A lot of people agree that a lot of people are going to tune in now to each series and see what happens between Larson and Gravel when they're out there racing each other. But a lot more drama to get into with Tyler Walker and Ron Rutherford, but we won't go into all that because all that crypto stuff is crazy.
Yeah, the High Limit versus Outlaws drama was made even better by the fact that a Pennsylvania posse guy steps in and beats them all at the King's Royal. Like that was one of the storylines I think that got kind of buried with all the Larson gravel drama, is that everybody's talking about Outlaws versus High Limit, and then Anthony Macri comes in and just whoops everybody's ass in the King's Royal. So, and now Macri's doing Macri things again in Pennsylvania, beating everybody at BAPS, and we're recording this on Friday, so we got 2 Williams Grove races, which he's perfectly capable of winning both of those, if not at least one of them this weekend. So, yeah, I was right by the media center when Gravel and Larson were walking to the Outlaws trailer, and the crowd around them. It was crazy, man. Like, and those guys are buddies. I don't really understand what Gravel's beef was. I thought those were 2 of the best drivers, sprint car drivers on the planet, just racing hard. I know it was a World of Outlaw points race, and I don't know if Gravel just expected Larson to kind of gift him the spot because he's the points leader. But last I checked, I was watching the 2 High Limit races the couple nights before that, and I didn't see David Gravel pulling over to let the High Limit guys go by. So, like, I don't know kind of what I missed from that. I'm a big David Gravel fan. I have been like since he first came up. But this was like the one occasion where I wasn't really on his side. I don't, there's nothing wrong with criticizing your favorite drivers. I just don't really know what his beef was there. So unless I'm missing something, I just kind of thought that those were 2 guys just battling hard for a podium spot. And I thought Larson had every right to do what he did. They were racing clean. So if you're going to race clean, I'm all good with that. I have a huge problem with anybody who spins anybody under yellow. That I've got no time for that. So I don't care who you are. That's just a big no-no in my books. And, I know Gravel's the points leader, but I thought there should have been some supplemental discipline there, because especially the fact that Larson didn't do anything to him. So yeah, well, it's interesting. Just adds more layers and more fuel to the fire. So, if you want drama in sprint car racing, we've got lots of it.
Yes, and speaking of drama, we saw on BAPS the other night, Danny Dietrich flipping on the front stretch and was very frustrated with Logan Schuchart and their team and throwing some hands in the pit area. So, but nothing surprising from Dietrich there. He's usually trying to beef with someone in the pits. But going into Williams Grove tonight, which is Friday, and tomorrow on Saturday, it's going to be obviously the big rivalry between the Outlaws and the Posse. Some drivers I want to keep an eye on. Obviously, Macri's going to be one of the favorites here going in the weekend, but I want to kind of pick some guys that between the Posse and the Outlaws that I might think that will get a win this weekend at Williams Grove is, well, I'm wearing my Williams Grove hat here, and this is Lance DeWeese. And, well, if you know him, he's one of the kings at running the bottom at Williams Grove. So I wouldn't be surprised at him to get an upset win at Williams Grove. He's won so many times there, and he might get one for the posse. Also, Chase Dietz has been really good for the posse as well in the 23 car. And then two outlaw guys I think that might, pick up a win might be Carson Macedo in the 41, and Buddy Kofoid's been pretty fast in Pennsylvania this past couple of years. So, Shaun, who are some posse and outlaw guys that might pick up a win this weekend?
Well, I'm never going to bet against Lance DeWeese, especially at Williams Grove. He's always so good there. I don't care. I know obviously he's getting older. He's not in the 69K, but I'm never going to bet against him. I think he's good enough to still at least steal a podium out of one of those two. I do think Macri's going to pick one up. And I'm going to really go out on a limb here. I know he's not running well, but Donnie Schatz, if he's ever going to have a win this year, you've got two at Williams Grove and then Weedsport on Sunday, where it's going to be dry, slick as hell. I do think that Donnie has a shot to get one win this weekend. It's been a struggle, but you're not going to keep that guy down forever. So I'm going to just go out on a limb and say it. I think Donnie Schatz gets a win this weekend. I'll be at Weedsport on Sunday, by the way. Pumped to see. There's going to be a bunch of our Canadian guys that have 410s that dabbled at Oshweekon and Ransomville, and they really haven't been able to run them. There hasn't been anything really close since then, but I know Ryan Turner, DJ Christie, those are two guys for sure. They're going to be there from Canada. So that's going to be pretty neat as far as Canadian race fans are concerned.
Definitely. And before we end today's episode, we got a cool guest coming up who drives in the high limit full time. He's definitely a young and upcoming racer who made a big step this year, changing teams, driving for CJB Motorsports. Shaun, you want to tell our viewers who we got coming up on the next After the Scales episode?
Yeah, so tentatively, we've got two shows next week. We're just trying to line up which guy is going to come on which date. But Brenham Crouch is going to join us next week. Another guy, I mentioned Dazen Pursley earlier. Brenham Crouch is slowly making progress. You can see it the last couple months. He's been getting better and better. Especially qualifying. He's been really stepping up his game there. And Kasey Jedrzejek, the surprise pole sitter for the Kings Royal, and whose dad was a longtime super modified driver out of Independence, Ohio, who I got to watch race as a kid. Kasey's going to join us next week. So we've taken some time off. It's been really busy. And we know the drivers have been busy. We've had some guests lined up and they've had to postpone or for whatever reason, and we get that. So we're coming back with a bunch of episodes the next few weeks. So really looking forward to talking some more sprint cars next week.
Yeah, definitely tune in for that. We appreciate everyone for tuning in to this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe. I know we hit 400 subscribers, so we appreciate everyone who follows and likes along and shares our stuff on social media. Always comment, which drivers you want us to try to interview. We'll do our best to get to them. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next After the Scales.
After the Scales is proudly presented by DJD Graphics. From commercial and personal vehicles to racing bikes and cars of all makes, models, and disciplines, DJD Graphics can fully customize your vehicle to suit your needs. For more information, contact Darren and visit his website at www.djdgraphics.com. Tell him Shaun and Jacob sent you to receive special rates.